Just like the card game, being labeled an old maid can make one feel unwanted and undervalued. Welcome to Amish Roots, plain talk in a modern world. Thank you for joining me. In the Amish tradition, when I was growing up, if you were a girl and unmarried after the age of 24, you would have been considered an old maid. This meant that you were probably past the age of being chosen by a young man a suitable spouse, and the older generation would have considered you past your prime. The fact was, I was one of those girls. In my late teens and early 20s, I had crushes on boys, and I also had a couple of boys who seemed interested in me. But the two scenarios never matched up with each other. So I remained single and eventually was given the title of an old maid. Being without a partner bothered me for a while, but I was having too much fun to let it affect most parts of my life. The times it was more pronounced was at our young people events, when I would see my crushes with other girls, and when others would tease me about being alone. In my day, Amish girls were expected to get married and have families. And if you didn't, then your life's goal was to be a maid to other families or be a school teacher. Not exactly great choices for a tomboy like me. Today, we would say this is a bit racist. I had an aunt who asked me once if I had a boyfriend yet. When I said no, she said, "Well, what is wrong with you?" To cover up how much her comment hurt me, and because I had a bit of a smart mouth on me, I responded, "Well, I think the question is, what is wrong with the boys?" And that is how it happened. That when my friend decided to form an old maids group, I happily joined. There were about 10 of us that met on a regular basis, with other girls joining us when they wanted to. We would take turns hosting our event, which always included a meal made by the host. Now, you would think that Amish girls, who were considered old maids, would gather to eat and then sit together to chat about sewing, quilting, canning, and cooking. And we did a little of that. But let me give you a little glimpse of what really happened. Once the meal and dishes were finished, that is when the antics and fun began. It was, of course, a given that our old maid parties, we would talk about men. Yep, it didn't matter if they were single, married, or even in our Amish community. No man was safe from our stories and jokes. Even the dad of our host was never spared. There was one man in particular from our Amish community. I will call him Josie, who we teased each other about. You see, Josie did not have a fondness for women, and I never knew why. He avoided them at all costs. When Josie walked into church, his nose went up and his eyes were averted as he walked past the women. You would have thought we reeked as bad as the pigs below us in the barn where church was being held. Because Josie acted this way, we figured he was fair game for our teasing, since we all knew we would never catch his attention. One evening at the old maid party, they were on my case about Josie and how he was a good match for me. So, to set them straight, I lamented that I had tried my best to nab him. I told the ladies that he had come to our place and was talking to my dad in the yard while I listened at an open window. I proceeded to spin my tale by saying I overheard him saying that he had come looking for old maids. Upon hearing these words, I proclaimed, that I raced out the door shouting, "Here I am! Here I am!" And poor Josie, frightened beyond his years, hightailed it out the laneway. The other ladies were giggling and asking all kinds of questions about what happened next. In my fictional story, I told them that I was so embarrassed because my dad told me I had misunderstood. Josie was not asking for old maids, but instead wanted old eggs, from our farm chickens. You can see how I would have made that honest mistake. Of course, we all went into gales of laughter as they all began adding their own stories to the Josie pile. Another time, we discovered it was one of the girls' birthdays. So we picked her up, put her in an empty rain barrel, and sang happy birthday to her, and then just walked away, leaving her in the barrel. Yes, we went back and helped her out. We were mischievous, not mean. We exaggerated our stories about having boys sending us letters and gifts. On one particular night, we were discussing Henry, which isn't his real name, who was known for asking girls to be his partner, and if she said no, he quickly moved on to the next one. Well, our stories about Henry got wilder and wilder, but I noticed one of the girls got quite quiet and was not adding to the conversation. So I asked her if she had received a letter from Henry. She blushed deep red, and of course we knew it was true. We began to pepper her with questions about when and where it happened. But to her credit, she didn't share any details. That was a notice to us, however, to be more sensitive to some of our topics of conversation. But it didn't curtail the teasing. The stories about our old maid hijinks are numerous, and as word spread about us, we were gaining a reputation as the crazy, in a good way, ladies. The label of being an old maid made some girls shy away from coming out to our events. But when others heard about how much fun we were having, they decided to come. And it wasn't just the girls that wanted to get in on the action. Other families wanted to host us. Perhaps we weren't the outcasts people thought we were. Is it possible that being an old maid could actually be fun? Our reputation was gaining a following. We were suddenly being invited to other Amish homes so they could be part of and witness the shenanigans. Our only stipulation was that they needed to prepare a delicious dinner for us. You see, food was a big part of our Old Maids Club, but that is a story for another time. Thank you for listening. Mach's gut, and I'll see you next time.